Hi everybody and welcome back to a new episode of Diagnosedan. Today we are working on a 2016 Seat Leon, and the only thing that's wrong with this car is that the rear passenger window doesn't go up or down anymore. Now you might think, how hard can that be? But the technician that worked on this car has already checked the wiring. He has replaced the window motor with window module. He hooked up a new set of buttons, but still the window wouldn't move up and wouldn't move down. So let's see if we can diagnose this one together. Now, before we continue the diagnosis on this Seat, I want to quickly show you something crazy that came into my shop the other day. It was a Fiat 500L that came from another shop, and it had crazy symptoms. Every time you push the defrost button, a message would pop up in the instrument cluster that the door had opened, and you could also use the defrost button to turn on and off the dome lights. Really crazy symptoms. Now in the end, the fix wasn't that difficult. It had broken wires in the door hinge, but when I went online, I found out that quite some Fiat owners were struggling with the same symptoms and they couldn't find out what was wrong. So if you have these symptoms, you probably have a broken wire in your door hinge. It's an easy thing to check, so check that first. Now, of course, we will also make a bulletin for this in our software, Tsb, where you can easily search the car and your symptoms, and we will show you the solution. Enough for now. I just wanted to show you because it were crazy symptoms and I had never seen that before. For now, let's continue with our Seat. Now, as always, let's start out by confirming the customer complaint. Now, the other shop obviously already took the door panels off. They're in the rear of the vehicle. I asked them to leave them off for easy accessibility. Now, the window motor that has been replaced right there is an OE one. It was purchased from Volkswagen. Now this is a Seat, which is basically a Volkswagen. Now this is the old unit. It is a window motor with a module, and they already also hooked up another switch block, but still no joy. Right now the ignition is on, and as you can see, the left front window works. The right passenger window works. The rear passenger window works, as you can see, but the only one that is not responding is the rear driver window. Now, right now the door panel is off and there's no switch, but what I've been told, it wouldn't go up and down when operated from this switch either. Now, as you all know, when I'm diagnosing a vehicle, I always like to hook up a battery charger. Now, why do I do that? Now, first of all, when we're diagnosing a vehicle, the ignition probably needs to be on for quite some time. We need to do some measurements, we need to read fault codes, and I don't want to worry about the battery draining. Now, when you turn on the ignition on a modern vehicle, normally the lights come on automatically and that will drain your battery. Now, I don't want to return this vehicle to the customer with an empty battery after we have fixed his window. So let's say we fix the window, but then when the customer comes home, it doesn't start anymore. We cannot have any of that. Another thing is that we need to take some measurements, and those measurements need to be reliable, where they're not when you have an empty battery. So my advice is, when you're diagnosing a vehicle and you know it's going to take some time, always hook up a battery maintainer. So the customer complaint was easy to confirm. That window doesn't go up or down. Now, we hooked up a battery maintainer, so we don't have to hurry and we don't have to worry. The next step we're going to take is read fault codes. Now, I already did, and there is actually a fault code stored in the driver's door module. Now, the fault code that's stored is the U10BA00, and that's local data bus, no communication, and we can see that's an active fault. I put the car on the lift so it's a little bit higher and a little bit easier to work on. Now let me try to explain that fault code. Now this right here is the driver's door module. Now this is the module we just read the fault code from, so at least we know we can communicate with this module. Now, among other things, this module is in control of all the power windows. So when we push a button like this, that button is directly connected to this box, and this module now knows, hey, the driver wants this window to roll down. It then sends a message, a package of data, to a module in the rear, and that is located right here. And this module is told, hey, the driver wants this window to roll down, and it then activates this motor. Right now, it does not. Now, what this module tells us is there's something going on with the communication among the modules. Now, we know that module is listening because this window is rolling down. That one is listening. The only one that's not listening is this one right over here. So what this module is trying to tell us is that there's something going on in the communication between this module and the module in the back. Now, this could be a bad module, but that module has already been replaced. Now, another thing I have noticed is when you push this button right here, and this is a child lock function. So when you push this button, the windows in the rear can no longer be opened with the button in the rear. So that's for safety when you have small children. When I push that button, we get a message in the dash that tells us there is a malfunction with this child lock. Now, it is in Dutch, but that's what it says. And normally, when you push this button, a light lights up. And it doesn't, so that's another symptom. Now, the first thing a technician will check when you have problems with any electronics in your door is the wiring harness of the door at the hinge right here. Now, the other shop told me they've already checked it, but just to be sure, we're going to check it again in the front and in the back. Now, this is the driver's door, and I pulled the grommet down, and now the wires are revealed. Now, I'm going to pull those wires with a hook, one by one, quite firmly, and if one of those wires is broken, I will be able to pull it out. Now, the other shop has already tried this, but just to make sure they haven't missed anything, we're going to try it again. Now, to be honest, there aren't that many wires in here. It's a lot of communication wires and a fat power and a fat ground. But as far as I can tell, none of them is damaged or broken. So let's check the one in the back. Right now we're at the rear door. I already pulled the grommet down a little bit. Let's try to pull it down a little bit further. And again, we're going to pull those wires one by one with a hook, because broken wires in door hinges are very, very common. Now again, the other shop has already checked this, but of course we're going to check it again just to be sure, just to make sure they haven't missed anything. Again, the wires look in great shape. If one of them is weak or broken because of opening and closing the door, or maybe one of them has got green crusties, we will be able to pull it out. Now, what I'm going to do is off camera, I will go through them again, one by one, and I'm going to take even a closer look, because right now, because of the camera, I'm actually at a terrible angle. But so far, it doesn't look like we have got a broken wire in this area. Now, of course, the wiring of the doors in the hinge area is super suspicious, because the doors are opening and closing all the time. The wires are bending, and eventually they might break. Now, as far as I can see, they're all fine, so let's move on to the next test. We still can't communicate, or it appears like we can't communicate with that rear module. Now let's start with a basic check. Let's see if that module is getting its power and ground. Now, of course, for this window motor to be able to communicate, or this window module, it needs a power and a ground. Now, as you can see, the power and ground kind of stand out because there's only two big wires, a brown one and a black and yellow one. So in the next step, let's confirm we have got a power and ground, which are essential for this module to be able to communicate. Now, normally I separately confirm my powers and grounds, but today we're going to do it a little bit differently. I back probe the black and yellow wire, which is a power feed, and I hook that up to my test light. Now, the other back probe is back probed in that brown wire, and that's a ground. So when I touch that wire, we should have full circle, and when there's a power and ground available, my test light should light up. And it does. So we have just confirmed that there is a power and ground present at that module, and that means this module is live. We've just confirmed we've got powers and grounds at the module in the back. Now that module is also new, so it should be able to communicate. You never know, but it should be. Now, we also know that the powers and grounds at the module in the front are okay. How do we know? We could read fault code, so it's communicating, so it's happy. So in the next step, let's take a closer look at the communication between the module in the front and the module in the rear. I took a look at all data and I looked up the communication wire between that module in the front and this module in the back. And it's supposed to be this little purple and white wire, and the signal that's supposed to be on there is supposed to be a lin signal. So I'm back probed in that purple and white wire right now. I hooked up my Pico and right now we are live. So let's take a look at that screen. Now, as you can see, we have just got a static line. So we know for sure there's no communication going on that purple and white wire. Now we have just learned we've got no communication on that purple and white wire at that rear door module. Now let's repeat that test, but this time let's hook up the Pico to that same wire, that purple and white wire, but this time at the driver's door module. So we know for sure we've got no communication going on at the rear, but do we have a communication on that same wire in the front? So right now we hooked up the Pico to that same wire. You can see that purple and white wire, but this time at the driver's door module. Now remember, it's the same wire running from here all the way through the car to the other module. So if it's the same wire, we shouldn't have any communication going on over there as well. So let's take a look at the Pico screen. But as you can see right now, we have got a perfect lin signal. So that means we've got a perfect signal over there, but on that same wire, we haven't got a signal at the rear. Now what I did is, since I know there's communication over there, but not over there, I made my own communication wire. So I hooked it up between that purple and white wire over here, and I connected that directly to that purple and white wire in the rear. So now, right now, we've got a direct connection between the front and the rear. So right now, it should work. The first thing I noticed immediately is that this button started working again. You see, now it goes on and off, and default message no longer appears in the dash. Now, when I disconnect this wire, that all stops working again. So we definitely, and we get the message again, by the way. So we definitely fixed something. However, my window is still not working. The one in the front is working, but still the one in the rear is still not working. So we fixed something, but it looks like we didn't fix everything. So let's see what fault code we've got right now. Maybe the fault code disappeared, or we have got no fault code at all, but let's find out. Now I read the fault codes in a driver door module again, and I cleared them and I looked for what came back. Now 2 fault codes came back, and one of them is rear driver side window regulator, so that module that it's not coded. Now when you replace one of those modules with a new one, it needs to be coded to the vehicle. Now since this is a brand new one and there was no communication, that has never been done. Now if it's not coded, it's not going to work. Now I don't know what the other shop wants to do with the module. Maybe they want to send it back, so I really don't want to code it. However, the old one is probably not broken and it is coded to this vehicle. So I want to replace it with the old one, and hopefully that window starts working again. Now this module is only being held down by 3 little torque screws, so I'm going to remove those, and after that I'm going to replace that module, and hopefully that window starts working again after we did that. That still means we have got a problem, because obviously this wire is still broken. Now that wire runs all the way from the front through the vehicle, through this door to this module, so obviously it could be broken anywhere. Now we have already checked this area over here, and it looked like it wasn't broken over there, but it has to be broken somewhere. So in the next step, we need to find out where. I reinstalled the original module, or the original window regulator from this vehicle, which is probably fine. Now let's find out what happens when we're trying to open that window right now. When we're trying to open that window, it still doesn't work. And my light is, oh, of course, we do have to connect our homemade communication wire. There we go. So right now we got a direct line between that module and the one in the front. Light is back on. Let's push the button and voila, there we go. The window opens and closes again. Now we have come quite far with this diagnosis, but we're not there yet. This purple and white wire is broken somewhere, and when I say somewhere, I literally mean somewhere. It runs from that module all the way through that door, then through that hinge, then back down and all the way through the car, back up, then through that hinge again into this door. Now what I did is I tapped into that wire, that purple and white wire, as close as I could get before it enters the door. So I'm tapped into that wire right now, and there's a little piece left before it enters the door, but I pulled that. It doesn't appear to be broken there, but this is about as close as I can get before it enters the door. Now I hooked it up to the Pico again. Now let's take a look at the waveform. As you can see, that signal is perfect just before it enters the door. So the signal is perfect up until that point right there. That means the broken wire must be somewhere close or in this door. Now what I did first is put up the car even higher so we can work a little bit easier. Now what I did is I removed the speaker so we can look into the door. Now I also removed the panel over here. Now with that speaker removed, and by the way I've got my flashlight in there, we can clearly see where those wires come into the door. That's right there. So this is basically the other side of what we were just measuring. Now that wiring harness then runs down that door and goes up here and comes out of the door right here. Now there aren't a lot of possibilities to do another measurement because it's all on the other side of the door. So what I want to see, what I can do is pull out those wires from the door and pull them out here so we can do a visual inspection. Now this is the connector that normally connects into the pillar right there. I disconnected that, and then there is a little tab right here. When you pull that, you can pull the entire wiring out of that door and you can get it out of the speaker hole quite far. Now hopefully this is enough. If not, we can remove it even further, but it's still my best guess. The break is going to be somewhere close to where that wire moves because of the opening and the closing of the door. So in the next step, I want to peel back that tape, and hopefully that reveals our broken wire. Now before I start peeling back that tape, I moved up that grommet a little bit higher up that wiring loom, and now we got a clear view of the wires that are normally in the hinge area. Now this is where you would expect those wires to break because this is where the wire flexes all the time. Now this is a little purple and white wire. Now this wire is broken and you would expect it to be broken right here. Now you can pull it all you want, but that wire doesn't appear to be broken. So very strange. I'm going to peel back the tape even more and hopefully reveal the true cause. Now as you can see, I peeled back the harness quite a way. This is how it normally would sit inside the vehicle, and I didn't find a broken wire. Well, in a way I did. Let me show you what I found. This is the purple and white wire, and when we look closely to this spot right here, you can see a tiny trace of green crusties right there. Now that wire is probably rotten through right there, so it is broken, but it's still being held together. Now you can see that it's quite far from the hinge area where you would expect something like this. Now in the next step, let's pull that wire. No, let's pull it a little bit harder. No. And there we go. Now, this is what's causing our communication issues. Just to show you guys the fix, I cut out the rotten piece of wire and I twisted the good parts back together for now. So now we got a solid connection. I also connected the connector again the wrong way around. Obviously, it needs to go through the door, but I still need to call the auto shop. What do they want? Do they want me to fix it? Are they going to fix it? But anyway, of course, it still needs to be fixed properly. This is just to show you guys the fix. Now with that wire reconnected, we can see that the child lock is working again and no more messages on the dash. And when we push that button, of course, our window goes down and our window goes up again. Now in the end, the real cause of this issue was really low tech. It was just a broken wire, nothing fancy. Now to get to the point that we knew it was a broken wire, we had to properly diagnose the vehicle. We had to take quite a few steps. Now me personally, I really thrive in these cases. It's what I love to do, it's my job, it's what I do best. But I just called with the technician that previously worked on this vehicle to tell him what's wrong, and he thinks that cars have become too complicated. He told me that analyzing a data network for a window not going up and down is really crazy, and there are easier ways to make a window go up and down. Now I would really love to hear your opinion. What do you think? Have cars become too complicated, or is it just a part of progress and do technicians just need to adapt? Now anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, and when you hit the little bell, you will get a notification each time I upload a new video. And remember, Diagnose Dan, fixed it again. See you next time, guys. And the only thing that's wrong with this car is that this passenger rear window, a light on the instrument cluster would pop up, and that car had crazy symptoms. Now before we continue, now as always, let's start out by confirming the customer complaint. Now the other shop already, so in the next step, let's take your So I back probed that and I hooked up my peepo, purple and white wire right there, and I hooked it. Wow! I want to peel down the tape and hopefully that will reveal.